Okay, so hello everyone, and welcome to today's curriculum change workshop, the second event of a third-part series on the need for better economics for climate change. This event is being led by Oikos International in collaboration with Rethink Economics, India Network, and the Pali Project. Oikos is an international student organization for sustainability in economics and management. It is also a leading reference point for the promotion of sustainability solutions. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, Rethinking is an international
Akriti, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think you're dropping off. And till I think she gets back, I'll just continue. So yeah, Oikos is an international student organization for sustainability in economics and management. It is also a leading reference point for the promotion of sustainability change agents. And for all those of you who are joining us for the first time today, Rethinking Economics is an international network building better economics in society and the classroom. The Pali Project is a student-led organization that is based in India and aims to develop and deliver research-based content and table solutions for real-time problems. Now, coming back to the event, the first of these sessions was held on the 21st of November, which was a panel discussion featuring great thinkers like Jayati Ghosh, Tejal Kanetkar, and Sagar Dhara, who recognized the gaps in the discipline of economics and these gaps which fail to address problems of climate change. The workshop would also be taking up from the previous event for a meaningful output. The third and the final event is on the 28th of November, which would entail two panel discussions. One on the industry and the private sector contribution bit, and the last one on the policy landscape and the regulatory challenges that are faced while tackling environmental degradation. So today's workshop, again, welcome you all, would be moderated by Nicholas Aguila. He is the curriculum change manager for Oikos International and is the graduate teaching assistant in macroeconomics for development in King's College London. So welcome, Nicholas. I hope you can take it from here.
Sure, thank you. Can you all hear me? Yes, can you hear me? Yeah, perfect, awesome. So thank you very much, Rethinking Economics India and the Parley Project for inviting Oikos to be a part of this amazing and very important event that you've organized. So my name is Nicolas Aguila, I'm the Curriculum Change Manager in Oikos. And I'm really happy to be here. I have a lot of experience in curriculum change in the Global South, particularly in South America, where I'm from. I'm originally from Argentina. But I don't have much experience in the Indian context, so I'm really looking forward to hear from you and to learn from you. So I will share my screen now, and let's get started with the workshop. Oh. No, that's not what I want, sorry. Great, can you all see my screen now? Yes, awesome. So just to check in and to get started, to get to know each other a little better, there I'm posing two questions for you. The first one is, what is the role of the university in our society? And the second one is, do you think universities are doing its job, and what should be the role? So this is just an introductory question. Please feel free to write whatever you think it's appropriate. Meda will there share in the chat with you the link to the Padlet, or if not, I can do it. And if for some reason you cannot enter into the Padlet, you can write your comments in the chat box. That's perfectly fine. If you see my screen here, you have you just go to the link, or even you can use the QR code that is on the screen here if you have your phones with you. And you just go click on the comment box and you can just start typing, no problem. There, I'm sharing the link. Let me know if you can
get it now.
access to it. But again, if for some reason you cannot go into the Padlet, just feel free to drop your comments here in the chat box. You can see the questions there, so no problem at all. Again, feel free just to post whatever you think. It doesn't have to be like a full-blown answer. It's just to get the session started. Yes, someone raised their hands. You can just unmute yourself. Go ahead. Sorry, I cannot really see who raised his or her hand, but just go ahead and unmute yourself. No problem. So if you prefer, you can answer the question by unmuting yourself and talking to us. That's also perfectly fine. So I'm starting to see some answers. Someone said that universities must empower the society with education so as to build a robust and ever developing society. That is very good, great. Then they are saying that the role of universities is to nurture intellectual capacity and curiosity, which might not be financially rewarding in society. That is, again, another aspect of the university, true. Also, that universities play an incredible role in society to build up youth who are to be arisen as an asset to the nation. Again, also a very good point. Someone else says that the university needs to educate, to upgrade skills, to make people capable to earn decent livelihoods. That is very much true. To sensitize youth, they say in the chat. That's very good. So this will be a highly interactive session. So I really encourage you to start to start sharing, because then we will have like a few breakout groups, and those groups are really important for you to be really engaged in. In fact, I will encourage you later to turn your videos on and unmute yourselves. But for the sake of this exercise, it's just fine if you start like slowly sharing with us and starting to feel comfortable with the goal of the workshop. I see more people joining, that's great. Then someone else says that the role of the universities is to make eventual decisions on policy and stuff that affect other people. That is very true. It is to make one think independently and scientifically. I totally agree with that. To address the needs of society, perfect. To provide a space to the minds to talk about the issues that are often not part of common discussions, preparing young minds to develop an inquiring mind and help them eliminate the fear of dissent. But that's very interesting. I never thought about that, but that is very true as well. Then the role of a university in the 21st century is to foster interdisciplinary research and stream in a more tangible manner. That's good. Here we have a comment on, do you think universities are doing its job, or what should be the role? Based on the current comments, looks like no. Yeah, that's part of the discussion that we are going to have today. You mentioned a lot of great things and noble objectives for the university, but it's up for discussion whether universities are actually doing that or not. And that also, of course, depends in your own context, right? I don't really know the situation on your particular university, but still the situation of economics worldwide is pretty homogeneous. So we are going to be able to discuss general aspects as well. A few more comments getting in. Help us to get a job. Yeah, most of us go to the university to get a job or to get a partner in many cases. Make us fall in love with econ. Truly, that is the role. I've never heard that one before. In fact, in my experience, more people go to the university to learn about econ, and then they quickly the opposite happens, right? They don't fall in love with it, but rather they feel a huge disappointment with what they are studying. And then university nurtures the hopes of the world. So that is, again, a great answer. So let me go to presentation again. So many of you pointed many interesting things that pretty much go into the same directions, right? So if you look historically, what is the role of the university in capitalist society? The university plays two major roles. The first one is to produce science, to produce knowledge. The university is the specific institution that our society, capitalism, has to produce knowledge. In previous times, knowledge was produced elsewhere, like in religious institutions, or even earlier, like in some wealthy philosophers were doing science. But now the bulk of research is done in universities, particularly of hard sciences, right? Today, we have many firms producing knowledge. If you think of the pharmaceutical industry, for example, or the software industry, they are truly innovating and producing knowledge, but still most of the knowledge and science in our society is produced in universities. And this is to provide a coherent understanding of the world, and also to produce technological developments, to make the science go further and apply that science into different areas of social life. And the second goal of the university is to produce professionals, right? To train people with the knowledge and the skills to be able to perform certain jobs in our society. If we think about doctors, about lawyers, about economists, we all have to go to the university to get the knowledge that we need to start working as such, right? So the university has this double role. On the one hand, to produce science, and on the other, to produce professionals with that knowledge so they can be a part of the workforce as productive members of society, let's say. So now the question is, how is it doing, right? And let's narrow the focus to economics, which is what I understand most of us have a background in or are studying currently. So how is economics doing considering these two dimensions? Sorry, I see some questions in the chat. Oh, okay, sorry, not for me. Well, I think one plain answer is that economics is doing pretty poorly. If you think at the science of economics, and now I'm referring mostly to neoclassical economics, which is what we all study and learn. Economics is doing pretty bad. And this is because neoclassical economics is not trying to truly understand the world and transform the world, as science should do, like to ask difficult questions and advance knowledge in areas when there are no answers yet, and to constantly rework previous answers in order to arrive at more satisfactory ones, more coherent and inclusive answers. But rather, economics is just trying to justify the status quo, to justify the current order of things. And because of that, it's also producing professionals who are only equipped to do exactly this and not something else. So if you look at economists today, economists in the media, economists in the government, they all talk say the same things. They all talk about austerity, right? About cutting budgets, about maximizing profits if you go into a firm, right? And there is purpose to the reproduction of the system, which is based on the maximization of profits and not on the satisfaction of human or environmental needs. And this is so much so that even when people really want to consider social or environmental issues, and they try to use the tools that they learn in their studies, mainly the tools of neoclassical economics, that leads to very bizarre answers, because neoclassical economics cannot really provide answers, I would say, not to the economic realm, but definitely not, it cannot be applied reasonably or coherently into social or environmental matters. And when it does so, it leads to some catastrophic answers, in my view. So if we look at market-based answers to address climate change, they are all a disaster. And perhaps this can be best, the current status of economics can be best illustrated by thinking about economic crisis. So it is clear that the economists failed to foresee the crisis. Let's think about the 2008 crisis. And with foresee, I'm not referring to predict, to say, hey, tomorrow at 10 a.m. there will be a crisis. We do not do futurology. That's not our role. But rather, they failed to see that there were underlying trends in the economy that were unsustainable and that they will necessarily lead to a collapse at what point, because that dynamics could not be sustained in time. And of course, the science failed to predict the existence of a crisis, and then economists failed to address the crisis. If you look at economists at central banks, economists at the Treasury, they were really ill-equipped to deal with the crisis because they studied neoclassical economics, which tells you that there is no possibility of a crisis because the market is self-adjusting and will lead to a full employment equilibrium at all times, right? So, and this is of course very much related to what we studied, to what our curricula. In my home university, the University of Buenos Aires in Argentina, they did a study on the syllabus of all the courses in our undergraduate degree. We had 33 courses, all in economics, and they studied the syllabus of the 33 courses, and in none of them was the word crisis, like in any of them, not even once. And how are we as economists be able to explain a crisis if we never saw that crisis was even a possibility of the economic system, right? And this is because, again, neoclassical economics thinks that the market will lead to a full employment equilibrium at all times and everywhere, when the reality of my country was very opposite, right? Argentina currently has crisis and has huge amounts of unemployment, huge amounts of poverty that do not really fit into the narrative of a full employment economy, right? And like the few neoclassical theories that do try to recognize the existence of crisis, they say this is the optimum result of the economy. They don't really explain, for example, real business cycle. They don't really explain where crises come from, but then prices are optimum for them. So if 25 people do not have a job, that's because of a shift of preferences. They are choosing not to work and have more leisure time, which is, of course, insane. So in general, as I was saying, if economics is crisis, if economics is in crisis, this is very much related to how we teach and how we study economics. And this is why changing our curricula is so important. And what we can see around the world is that economics is characterized by a total lack of pluralism. We only study one theory, which is neoclassical economics, and we do not study many theories that produce contrasting explanations that have powerful criticisms to neoclassical economics, but also have powerful answers to real world problems and issues. such as Keynesian economics, Marxist economics, ecological economics, feminist economics, dependency theory, structuralism, Sraffian economics, and so on and so on. There are many, many, many. And we should definitely be studying them and contrasting them and comparing them and see how they do when trying to explain the world. Then there is a lack of discussion on real life problems, right? We do not really, or at least in Argentina, we don't really discuss the Argentinian economy. And we study full employment models that are not in any way related with my reality and not with the Indian reality for sure. And finally, and very shortly, economics is, the teaching of economics or our curricula is has a strong focus on mathematics and econometrics, and we do not really discuss other methodological perspectives. Of course, we need mathematics and we need statistics, but we also need to understand how and when to apply them. And they are not the only way to see to economic problems. There are quantitative methods and there are other methods that are perhaps more appropriate to some problems. And in some cases, the use of econometrics is just plainly wrong, right? There has been recently a lot of discussion on randomized control trials, but this is just an example of a gross misuse of a statistical technique. So considering this, it is not surprising that economics is also failing to address the climate crisis, to address the problems of climate change, the problems of world warming, how to produce away from the use of fossil fuels, how to transform our economy in a green direction, right? And these are all matters that are pressing and very urgent matters that cannot really wait for 20 or 30 years to get addressed. We need answers right now. So with that, I would really want us to go a little bit deeper into how your curricula is addressing ecological problems. So I'm going to share with you a link to a poll. I will share it with you in the chat, or Mida, if you are there and you can share it. But if not, you can just see the link there in the screen. And there it's just pretty straightforward. You just click on it, and then the system will ask you a few questions, and I just want you to answer them based on your own experience. So, well, maybe I will share it then. Just please copy that and paste it on your browser, and the system will guide you through a series of questions. Great, I see that people are already starting doing the poll. So please let me know if you have any trouble to enter into that. And many of you are already doing it. That's great. So many of you are done already, but there are already still 9 of you underway. So I will give you just 2 more minutes so you can complete it and we get answers that are more representative as we are taught. Statistically significant answers. Okay, are you ready to see the answers? So the first question was, does your curriculum have mandatory courses on sustainability or with an ecological perspective? And not surprisingly, more than half of you said that no. And 46% of you said that yes, one, which is important to have at least one, but many, none of you. So in the best case scenario, only one. Then does your curriculum have optional courses on sustainability or with an ecological perspective? Almost half of you said no, not even optional courses. And then 13% of you said yes, many, but 42 said only one, which is, again, not a lot, but still at least something. So this was a more general question. How present is the sustainability or ecological perspective in your courses? No one said that a sustainability or ecological perspective is an integral part of your curriculum. That is very concerning. Only 1/4 of you said that it is present, but there is still room to improve. 60% of you, so the vast majority of you, said that there is little discussion, which is very, very much concerning. And then 17% of you said that there is absolutely no discussion. It is totally or absolutely absent. So in the question of, do you think your curriculum prepares professionals for the challenges of climate change or the sustainable development goals? Only 4% of you said that yes. 54% of you said that maybe a little, and more than 40% of you said that not at all. So this is like very interesting, because even a bigger amount said that you have at least one course or at least one optional course. You still believe that with that is not sufficient for you to be ready to tackle the challenges of climate change or the sustainable development goals. And that is a very interesting result. So then, is your university doing research to address the challenges of climate change or the SDGs? 40% of you said that no, that is hugely concerning. 29% of you said that a little, which is fine, but just a little. 21% of you said that you really don't know. And that is, of course, a problem as well, because you should know if your university is doing research and what is this doing and how it is doing, right? And only 13% of you said that yes, a lot, which is a very, very small number. And finally, perhaps the most important question of all, do you think you need curriculum reform? And only 4% of you said that no, that you are very happy with what you are studying. In that case, I really welcome you to share the experience of your university so that we can copy it. But the vast majority of you, 63%, said that yes, you need urgent and radical change, and 33% of you said that that there are missing elements, so curriculum change is needed. So with this idea that we all pretty much agree that we need curriculum change, the question is how and where do we start? How do we do it? What type of change do we need? And for that, I want you to break out in breakout rooms. Mida, if you are there, please break them in groups. And you will discuss the following questions. You will discuss which courses should be changed, what topics will an ideal curriculum, sorry, I cannot see. What topics, subjects will an ideal curriculum include? What are some of the best examples in your studies? And what are some of the best examples from other universities? So you will have 15 minutes to discuss these questions, and I will share them with you in the chat so you can see them as well while discussing. Are there any questions so far on the whole first block or with what you have to discuss now? If not, that's great. Please go ahead and start discussing these questions.
I advise all the moderators who are going into the breakout rooms to take note of the questions on the screen so that those who have missed these questions and have gone to the breakout rooms beforehand can be reminded of these questions. Please make sure that they are. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point. I share the questions in the chat so you can just copy and paste on your own groups.
Yeah.
I'll also broadcast the questions, so it will be there on
Great.
all.
Perfect.
Also, Mida, please send the breakout room distribution request again since I chose later. I have to join one as well.
Yeah, okay. Utkarsh, could you check if you're able to join?
Okay, I see that people are slowly coming back to the big room. So now the idea will be for you to share a little bit of what you've discussed in the breakout rooms. Maybe like 1 minute, tell us what were the most important things that you discussed there. So maybe someone from group 1 wants to start, if you know the number of your group. And if not, just feel free to jump in. Is someone speaking? I cannot hear that very well.
I can't hear anybody either. I'm from group 1. I was hoping maybe Samriddhi or Deepak would lead because they were sort of helping to lead the conversation. But I can try to summarize what we discussed there. I'm Rob. I've just turned my camera on. Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, so we discussed on these subjects. Of course, we didn't have these questions in front of us, actually, these four questions that you have here. So we didn't necessarily discuss these 4 questions exactly, but we discussed our experience of what the units that we've taken and the courses we're on at university and what that's been like. I mean, one of the comments that I made is that as much as I do think that we need more optional but also compulsory, it has to be compulsory environmental units. To some extent, I don't think it even makes sense to have them as separate units. We just need to start to integrate this into particularly our macroeconomic models, because I just don't think that the macroeconomic models we use are going to, well, they don't work. I think they're going to continue to break down further in the face of reality, where we have increasingly extreme climate change. So it really needs bringing into compulsory core macroeconomics as well. A bit perversely, we discuss it more in microeconomics in terms of externalities and different tax policy solutions to externalities. We don't really discuss systemic threats to the macroeconomy in macroeconomics, as I have experienced it anyway.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that.
We also discussed on how the models are mostly a replication of the West. Deepak had mentioned this. He's working currently designing models for energy, oil, and gas. So that is where he mentioned that most of the models are replication of West. So right now he has started looking at from an Indian perspective for the energy poverty access issues exist in India. And he also feels that economists do take into account of the carbon emissions in the model, but to what extent they do is where we still need to deliberate upon. And Rob, also adding to your point, you also shared that no macroeconomic model can stand in the next decade if it does not have environment in the center of its construction. So yeah.
That's a great point. Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Maybe someone from group 2 now?
What do you want to change?
So
They said that, if I'm not wrong, Khalid was like the overemphasis put on a particular school of thought and the lack of focus on sustainability and development goals. And then Laura was like, not one course approach that needs, not one course that should be changed. The entire approach that the course has, like that should be changing. And the ideal university for them, one is JNU and one is Azim Premji. That one. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Great points. Someone else from
Hey,
group 2, or yeah, go ahead.
no, I'm from group 4. And
Okay, that's fine.
okay, so we talked a little bit about when we talked about things that we wanted changed, we talked about what other sort of perspectives at looking at conventional things that were taught we want to include. So we touched a little bit upon how behavioral economics or feminist economic theories or an emphasis on environmental and ecological economic perspectives should also be factored in. And we also discussed how in most of our universities those were optional, um, optional curriculums at the end of a semester or something like that, but we wanted them to be sort of made compulsory courses and sort of more mainstreamed into everyday sort of learning and made compulsory. And one best example that we could, share was the fact that some of our universities have begun teaching research methodology and data analysis as skills specifically. And although the curriculums are slightly outdated or the software packages being taught um, are at a very basic or superficial level, but still just the fact that they're trying to get students to pick up skills at undergraduate level is something that we thought should be encouraged even more. So that's from us.
Great, thank you. Thanks for sharing that. Someone from group 3 or 5 or 6?
I can go. I think we were group 3. A point that was raised in the group was that how economics is often disjunct with the lived realities. For example, labor in economics is plays a very important ecological role, and ecology studies of ecology lacks the depiction of relationship between humans and nature. There's this notion of metabolic rift that can be highlighted, and this becomes important because such kind of courses actually relate the everyday with the nature, and nature does not is not turned into an abstract something which is away from the classroom or away from our everyday lives. Ankush also stated that nature is mostly seen as an instrument or a tool. It is not seen as an end goal. So this leads to this notion of nature is always relegated to a use case, something as a resource. So this perception needs to change. There was also a concern that even with the ecological framework, this notion of sustainability is often used, but it does not actually, it is again a very neoliberal notion in itself, and it does not involve structural change per se. A very good example of this is the use of carbon tax and everything within this whole sustainable debate, wherein you are actually just translocating the pollution and paying for it. Finally, Anupama raised this notion that how there is a lack of focus on basic understanding and definitions of what ecology and development is, especially in undergraduate courses. And there is a required knowledge transfer of how development should be initiated. And she gave examples of commissions in India which actually talk about development and ecological excesses. These need to be taught to economics student as well. Finally, a final point that was raised was actually the ownership of a course. Basically, who creates a course, that needs to there needs to be a development of power to the students in itself. And maybe the only one good thing that can come out of privatization of universities is that students can actually demand of what they want to study since they're paying for it. And if they're made aware about ecological issues, they might demand that that they be taught issues of ecological economics in classrooms. Yeah, that was it.
Great, thank you. You touched upon many important points. Great discussion. Someone else wants to share?
Group 7. I'm from group 7. Yeah. So we discussed that all courses must be updated every year. Like generally the universities updates the syllabus for like every 5 years or 10 years, but professional courses keeps updating their syllabus every time there's an amendment or anything new is introduced in the market. So we think the universities are static, not dynamic. And also we all agree that the courses should become more interdisciplinary. For instance, chemistry and economics can be intertwined in the undergrad courses. Like if one wants to work in the field of economics, then we need to have some minimum basic knowledge about nutrition and health. uh, Even though we have environmental study courses in India, we feel that they are not uh, quantitative in nature. So that's what we have discussed. So we think that economics and environmental studies must be more quantitative. It's rather qualitative in India.
Okay. That's great. You added many things that were not discussed before. Awesome. Thank you. Anyone else wants to share?
Am I audible, sir?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, sir. If all speakers from the group have said, I want to give a few insight to the main attraction I saw in the country India. In country India, in Mumbai, the college called TIS Tujalpur, Tata Institute of Social Sciences, Tujalpur. In that college, we study BA, Bachelor of Social Sciences, and Bachelor of Rural Development. The college is situated at a rural area, and along with their courses, they allow the students to engage in the development work of the remote rural areas and the empowerment of their people and the empowerment of the ecology of the area. And I feel that is a bit it nourishes the improved humanitarian skill and our social commitment to the ecology. So such courses like the examples of this college should be added to all the universities so that
Oh, we lost you.
sir.
As we lost you for the last part.
Hello, sir. So I personally feel, sir, these universities will highly nourishes the students' commitment to society and commitment to ecology. And I personally wish every university should be brought this scheme under control. That's attaining the allowing students to engage in the ecological development of the area in which the college is engaged. That will increases their willpower, so their commitment to the society, so that if an economics student studies the subject, what is more important that commitment to the society and ecology than studying economics. So that part, by following this college, is have to be adopted by all the universities, and it will be quite an asset to the future. I personally feel so, sir.
Great, thank you. We lost you for some part, but I think your main point was
Sorry, sir.
very clear.
I'm so sorry, sir.
No, that's fine.
So
Thank you. Great. Very super interesting points you've all raised. Anyone else wants to share something? If not, we can move on. Okay, just as a recap, you all mentioned the necessity to mainstream ecological economics, not just to discuss it as a silo, but to integrate it into the whole structure of the curricula. You mentioned that it should be compulsory, not something optional, something that all students should go through. You mentioned that it should discuss structural change and not shallow or superficial answers or being incorporated in a partial way. Then you raised the issue of the ownership of the course, who creates it. That is very important. Then you mentioned that it should be updated every year, that it should be dynamic. You raised the need for it to be interdisciplinary, which is very important in my view. And first, you also need, finally, you also mentioned the need to go into the field to get practical experience and to get engaged with the development of the local area. So now that we have this idea of what do we want to change, I want to very briefly introduce a framework on how to get started with curriculum change and how to start campaigning around curriculum change. So we came up with this framework developed by an Oikos advisor. And basically you start with an analysis of the problem. In our case, it's the lack of sustainability issues or pluralism more in general in economics. Then you go to a vision statement, which is what do you want to achieve? Then you clearly define your campaign objectives. So for example, saying that we need more pluralism in economics doesn't really tell us something concrete. We need to narrow that down to concrete demands to make very clear what we want. Then we need a target audience. We need to clearly identify who are we talking to and what do we can expect from them. Then to have a key message, and then when we have all of that, we can define a strategy and tactics, which is the means to get to that long-term strategy. And finally, the resources that we need. So we are going to provide that for you, and we are going to do a short activity in breakout rooms again. We are going to give you the analysis, which is the lack of sustainability in economics education. We are going to give you a vision statement. So what is your goal, which is economics education purpose for a sustainable world? That again is very, very ambitious, so we have to narrow it down. And we narrow it down to introduce a course on sustainability in the first year of the degree for all students. I know that in some universities already this is a course, and we also know that this is not enough, that we need to mainstream. But as a first step, this can be a good direction. And finally, we are going to also give you the target audience, who is the students at your university. And given all of this, we want you to discuss the key message, what do you want to say, and the resources that you need. So Nida, if you can break people into rooms again.
Before that is done, I request all participants to just look at the slide that is being shown right now and take a note of the expectations in the slide, what all you have to do, so that you can do it smoothly in the breakout room and there is no confusion.
Yeah, thank you for that. That's important. So also, if there are any questions about the activity, please feel free to ask them. Okay, so I see that people are coming back. Um, so I hope this session was interesting and useful for you, and that you take some tools to start changing the curricula in your places of study. In the remaining time, I want you to share what you've learned from this session and what tools you take from this session, and also about the last activity, what you thought about it, and if you think that you might implement some of that. And I also want to share with you my email. Please feel free to send me an email if you have any comments on this session, but also if you want to start engaging with curriculum change and you think that we might support you in some way, just feel free to write us with any questions you might have. And also, if you want to get to know a little bit more about curriculum change, we at Oikos do often do workshops like this. In fact, this Saturday we're going to host one based on the experiences of Oikos chapters that actually transform their curricula. So if that is interesting for you, please feel free to send me an email, and you are most welcome to attend. So so now if you want to start sharing, that would be great. And with that, we are slowly wrapping up the session. So you can unmute yourselves or just write in the chat. That's also fine.
Hello, Nicholas. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. So, in during our session, we discussed that how it is not necessary. Of course, there is an emphasis that papers need to be introduced, courses need to be changed, but that can also lead to another problem, which is that reduction of the entire thing into a mundane academic exercise. So, I'm from Jamia Millia Islamia, New Delhi, and I did my graduation in economics from there. So the Department of Economics was also research center for environmental economics. So there we didn't have just papers. There we used to have seminars, workshops, symposiums, paper presentations, lectures and projects also under the department for different industries. And they were a very not they were very regular, often organized, like thrice in a month, 4 times in a month. That was one of our propositions through that, what we discussed in the breakout room. Other thing that we also discussed, that how there is a systematically things are being changed, because in India, if you look at the syllabus of the economics, one thing that I have noticed, that political economy or the development, the political economy of development has been totally scrapped out. Nowhere history of economic economy is taught. So it's kind of a systematic change, because it would lead to questioning the model itself, and also the people who are behind it, because whose interest these things are going to serve. Because at the end of the day, then the people who are largely impacting environmental losses, that will have to pay for it. And that's all. I think Afreen, I just lost Afreen at one point of time, so maybe he can contribute the rest of what we discussed.
Okay, thank you for sharing. Great.
So I agreed with most of what Vishal had said, and I think the only one thing that I think is what I considered important was that he is an undergrad student and he gave lots of good points, but he also gave certain perspective that how in his center research students undertake methods which remain inaccessible to undergrad students a lot of times. So to that end, we could use this time, especially us privileged people with the tools to interact with each other and the time, to organize conferences or workshops or seminars and pull in senior researchers to present their works, wherein everybody can actually not just learn theories but contextualize how they can be used in everyday researches, how researchers are actually using them, operationalizing them. It would also give confidence and help uh, uh, budding economists to pursue a career in like a research career in economics, and they would actually chart out and plan their programs and courses. So maybe this greater interaction between not just people from the same program but across different levels, gradations of like interaction with economics. Finally, I had one issue, one point is that public universities, I mean, forget private universities, but even public universities do not display their current curriculum transparently, and it is not accessible to all. So they are run on taxes from the citizens, yet citizens can't access what is being taught there, especially in the age of internet, when you can go and, like, even if you're not part of a course, but still it becomes very easy if you have a whole list of readings being taught at that time. So I think there needs to be this move from students themselves to ask universities to display what they're teaching, irrespective of whether the student is part of the program or not, especially if they're a public university. So I think this was what we discussed.
Yeah, that's also a great point. I agree with that. So maybe like to match your two contributions. So I think that the student movement has a key role pushing for curriculum reform, but that is not the only thing that the student movement has to do. At the same time, it's essential that the student movement starts prefigurating the university that we want to see. And for that reason, I think that events like these ones are super important because the students, we cannot wait until universities reform their curricula to start learning what we need to learn right now. And then if we organize and start sharing this knowledge, then we allow students to start learning that already and also preparing ourselves to be professors in the future, right? A problem that happened to us was that we really wanted to discuss, let's say, feminist economics, but there wasn't anyone who could teach that course at the time. So we started, we ourselves as students, to discuss those topics and preparing ourselves. So eventually we'll have the capacity to teach that. And because of that, I think this is it's super important that we fight in the two levels. At the one hand, on the institutional arena, pushing for curriculum reform, as deep and structural as possible, but also knowing that we need to win like small things in the process. So it's great to aim for a full-blown curriculum reform. We actually had our own proposals for a new curricula from scratch, but that was hard to implement. But we managed to include feminist economics, for example. And we need to know that it is a process, and we need to conquer small victories as well. But at the same time, we also need to fight a struggle in the university, but outside the institutional structures, and creating spaces like this one where students can meet and start discussing and learning from each other and from professors about the topics that we need to. So we are training ourselves to eventually be able to teach that. So unfortunately, we ran out of time. This discussion has been great. Thank you so much to everyone. Again, I shared my email there, so please feel free to write me at any point. And yeah, hope to have helped you in any way, and that can you can push your reform processes further. So thank you very much, and hope to see you soon.